So I recently watched the big three of Disney animated TV shows, Amphibia, Owl House, and Gravity Falls. It all started a few months back when I was looking at memes on iFunny when I saw a meme that... Hey, now hold on. Before you say anything, if you're watching this video about this topic, then you're probably on Twitter as much if not more than I'm on iFunny. And can you really say that Twitter is that much better? Anyways, the meme was one of those boomer memes about how modern cartoons are worse than older cartoons, with the bad modern cartoon being Amphibia. What drew my attention was the fact that most people in the comments seemed to take issue with Amphibia being deemed a bad show. Most of the time, the only thing that people on iFunny can agree on is being racist, sexist, homophobic, etc. And even then, you'll find the occasional person saying, he might be black, but he sure made to do. The fact that so many people collectively referred to Amphibia as one of the best Disney Channel TV shows was noteworthy. So I renewed my Disney Plus subscription, and over the next few days, I watched the show in its entirety. Afterwards, I figured that I might as well watch Owl House, get my money's worth out of my subscription, and before I even finished Season 1, I managed to binge watch all of Gravity Falls over the course of a day and a half, then watch the rest of Owl House until the series finale at like 3 in the morning. Before I actually get started, I just want to warn you that I will be spoiling Amphibia, Owl House, and Gravity Falls. I don't know why you're watching this video unless you've already watched those shows or don't care about spoilers, which, hey, I feel you there, but I figured I'd give you a warning just in case. So now that I've watched them all, the only thing left to do is to make a review about all 3 shows, starting with... Amphibia stars Anne Boone Choi, a human girl who ends up being transported to another world inhabited by amphibians. She gets taken in by the Planter family, Hopadiah Hop Pop Planter, farmer and grandfather, Sprig, the rambunctious and adventurous 10-year-old frog boy, and Polly, the violent tadpole. Together, the 4 of them embark on various adventures, growing as people, finding Anne's friends, and investigating how to return to the human world. Now that I've covered the premise, I'll go ahead and go season by season, sharing my thoughts on the show. Season 1 of Amphibia is just okay. My main problem with Amphibia is that it has a case of what I like to call Western Animation Syndrome, or WAS. WAS affects around 99% of animated projects made in the West, and refers to an animated show or movie that's made intended for either children or adults. This has alienated the general public from viewing animation as a proper medium of storytelling, and has convinced them that the only people who are able to enjoy animation are children who watch children's shows, and man children who like to watch cartoons because it has swear words. Not every animated project has WAS, the most notable example nowadays being the Spider-Verse movies. They feel like they were meant for anyone of any age to watch and enjoy them. Additionally, not everything that has WAS is bad. Avatar: The Last Airbender is considered by many to be one of the greatest shows ever made, despite being made for children, and The Boondocks is a crude adult comedy that has done more for the fight against racism than BLM. Unfortunately, Amphibia has an extreme case of WAS. The problem is that, at least for the first season, Amphibia is pretty light on plot. Out of the 20 episodes of Season 1, there are only around 4, maybe 5 episodes that connect back to the plot in some way. Just because a show doesn't have a strong plot doesn't automatically make it bad. Anyone who's seen Nichijou My Ordinary Life would tell you that it has about as much plot as a newspaper comic strip, but it makes up for it with its hilarious jokes. But when it comes to Amphibia, the writing is focused more on the characters than it is the plot. That's all well and good because it is important to make sure we can relate to and care about the characters in a story, but I feel that Amphibia takes its focus on character development too far, to the point that after a while, I stopped caring about the characters anyway because they aren't doing anything meaningful. I stopped caring that Anne misses her home, I stopped caring that Sprig wants to go on adventures, and I especially don't care that Polly just wants to fight stuff. The only character I found myself looking forward to watching was Hop Pop, though that might partially be attributed to the fact that I call my own grandfather Pop Pop and saw a little bit of him in Hop Pop. After a while, it starts to feel like the show is just recycling the same story and message every episode. The characters encounter a problem in the town, they try to fix it, something goes horribly wrong, some MacGuffin teased earlier in the episode comes along to solve the problem, and the characters learn their lessons. I wish there had been a few more episodes that connected back to the plot of the season. Like, maybe we could see that some of the Toads of Toad Tower don't quite trust Sasha yet, so she has to embark on some quest in order to gain their trust. I know that story more or less already gets told in Season 2, but I'm sure there's at least one story in Season 1 that you could swap out and replace with this one. Speaking of Sasha, the only things left for me to talk about for Season 1 are episodes 10 and 20, easily the best episodes of the season. Episode 10 starts with Toad Attacks, where we get introduced to the Toads, a faction in Amphibia who are sort of like the warrior caste of society. Their official role is to serve as protectors, but their aggressive nature doesn't stop them from doing less than honorable deeds. The episode starts with Anne complaining about how even after living in Wartwood for over a month, the townspeople still don't respect her. Soon after, she runs into an envoy from Toad Tower who have come to Wartwood to collect the taxes that are owed to them. The Toads convince Anne to help them collect taxes by saying that wearing the Toad Tower badge means that the townspeople have to respect her no matter what. But after seeing the Toads treat everyone poorly, she goes out of her way to give the people as much of their stuff back as possible, until she's forced to step in and stop the Toads from taking the Planter family snail. This, combined with her previous acts of kindness, caused the rest of the town to step up in defense of Anne, before Sprig comes along and reveals that the corrupt bear hid all the town's taxes in an effort to keep it all for himself. For the first time, we see a major change in the status quo of the show, as the townspeople not only show respect for Anne, but see her as a defender of the town. The second part, Prison Break, officially introduces us to Sasha, who we only briefly saw at the end of episode 1. She was captured by the Toads of Toad Tower and has been kept a prisoner ever since. During an interrogation by Captain Grime, the leader of Toad Tower, Sasha demonstrates how capable she is by manipulating the guards into treating her nicely and abandoning their posts, and fending off a heron when a pair of them attack Toad Tower. Sasha is able to convince Grime that being nice to people will make them do whatever he wants, and when it works by inspiring the Toads to fight off the herons, Grime convinces Sasha to join the Toads as a second-in-command and bring order to Frog Valley. In my mind, this episode does two very important things. It establishes Anne as someone who, when push comes to shove, will stand up for what's right even at the cost of her own comfort and safety. And it establishes Sasha as someone who is willing to do or manipulate whatever or whoever it takes to get what she wants, regardless of who gets hurt in the process. This contrast in their characters is shown at its best in the season finale reunion. As a result of all the shenanigans pulled by Anne and the Planters, Hop Pop became a figure of rebellion for frogs across the valley to fight against the ruling Toads. In order to squash the rebellion, Sasha and the Toads lure the citizens of Wartwood to their tower under the pretense of celebrating the reunion of Anne and Sasha, with the intent to execute Hop Pop and end the rebellion. In the end, Anne is forced to stand up to Sasha in order to save Hop Pop, at the cost of betraying Sasha so severely that their friendship might never heal. I don't know about you, but I find the trope of a person realizing how manipulated they were and rebelling against their manipulator so satisfying. And even after betraying her, as the tower they're standing on is crumbling and falling, Anne still grabs onto Sasha when she falls. Then Sasha lets go of Anne's hand in order to save her. You see the dark silhouettes of the characters set against the red moon, all while somebody to lean on plays. This is easily the most emotional I felt up to this point in the show, and cemented it as the best episode of the season. Of course, Sasha is saved by Grime, and the two groups go their separate ways, but the way that Grime looks back at Anne and the Planters, the conflict is far from over. And that was Season 1 of Amphibia. Obviously, I don't have a lot of good stuff to say about Season 1. As a show for children, yeah, it's good, but compared to Owl House or Gravity Falls, these shows were clearly made for the same demographic, yet they managed to be enjoyed by people of different ages. In contrast, I didn't get anything out of the first season of Amphibia that made me go, wow, this show is amazing. Only half of the episodes of Season 1 I consider worth watching. If you want my personal watch list for the Season 1, it's the first 5 episodes, then episodes 8, 10, 14, 16, 19, and 20. Going into Season 2, my expectations were pretty low, and I began to wonder if maybe I finally was wrong. I mean, these people have a near cult-like devotion to the Star Wars prequels, so they don't exactly have the best track record when it comes to objectively critiquing movies and TV shows. Nonetheless, I started watching Season 2, and this is easily the best season of the entire show. Right off the bat, Season 2 makes an improvement to the first season by moving the main cast out of Frog Valley and into the broader world of Amphibia. We just spent an entire season, 39 adventures, stuck inside of Frog Valley, so the fact that we get to see even more of the world of Amphibia is a breath of fresh air. We get to see all kinds of interesting stories we otherwise wouldn't get to, like Hop Hop trying to break out as an actor, or Anne getting conned by an alternate dimension Grunkle Stan. And right when the journey starts to get stale, Anne and the Planters reach Utopia and we get introduced to Marcy, Anne's other friend who got sucked into Amphibia. Marcy is an absolute delight every time she's on screen, and is easily my favorite character of the show. She's super smart, but clumsy. Of all the humans, she took to this new world better than the others, writing all her observations in her journal and becoming a close friend to Andreas, King of Utopia. The fact that Andreas is voiced by Keith David automatically makes him my second favorite character of the show. That's ignoring the fact that he's a genuinely enjoyable character.
Hello, Planter family! Oh, bring it in, you guys! Bring it in!
Seeing a high-ranking noble acting so goofy, with the voice as silky smooth as Keith David's, I can't think of a single bad thing to say about him. And he's just so dang nice. He couldn't hurt a fly. General Yunin is fine. The joke about her having to say her entire title is funny, but otherwise she doesn't have enough screen time for me to really get invested in her as a character. The same goes for Lady Olivia. Another character that didn't get enough screen time was Frobo. His debut was in the very first episode of the season, and throughout the rest of the season we see that he's slowly making his way to Wartwood. But he doesn't get properly introduced into the story until episode 15, and he doesn't get any episodes dedicated to him to really make sure I get attached to him. I feel that he should have been introduced earlier. like maybe replacing the shut-in with Frobo's introduction. I personally wouldn't mind that since I'm not too fond of episodes that are just a short series of scary stories. That could give him more screen time and episodes centered around him, like maybe Anne and Sprig destroy something but blame it on Frobo, causing Frobo to almost be dismantled. Or maybe Hop Hop still doesn't trust Frobo because it's unknown technology, but when a giant monster attacks the farm, it's up to Frobo to defeat it. You don't necessarily have to give him a well-defined character or personality since he's a robot, but make him the focus of a few episodes so that when he's destroyed, it doesn't feel like I watched a mannequin get crushed. It's at this point in the script that I realize I haven't exactly talked about the plots for Season 2, so I'll hop right to it. The reason Anne and the Planters haven't made much progress in discovering how to get Anne back home is because they've been stuck in Frog Valley all this time, due to the only passage to the rest of Amphibia being blocked off by a sheet of ice that they had to wait to melt. But now that the ice has melted, the Planter family can finally set off for Newtopia and find someone to help them. As I mentioned before, there isn't too much in the way of plot for the first few episodes until the characters reach Newtopia. After taking part in some Newtopian adventures, King Andrius and Marcy discover that in order to power the music box that brought Anne and her friends to Amphibia, they have to charge the 3 crystals inserted into the box by visiting 3 temples. The 3 temple episodes are definitely the standout episodes of the season. I love watching characters overcome trials and puzzles that they are uniquely suited for. Marcy and Anne are able to complete the trials of the first and second temples, but need to work with Sasha in order to complete the third temple. Sasha and Grime are acting like they mean well, but the audience already knows that they're planning to betray them, so all they can do is anxiously watch as the group draws closer and closer to their betrayal. Before the finale, we get a delightful pair of adventures in the dinner and Battle of the Bands, where it's clear that regardless of how much Anne trusts Sasha, even after completing the third temple, there's still tension between the two of them. I don't know how controversial of an opinion this is going to be, but I do kinda like the song that Sasha and the Sharps play in Battle of the Bands. It kinda reminds me of Hero 2 from My Hero Academia. Not something I'll actively put on my playlist, but I might look it up on YouTube if I'm feeling a strong urge to listen to that kind of song. And then we get to the season finale, True Colors. Oh man, this is probably the best episode in all of Amphibia. It starts out with a flashback to the human world, before Anne and co are transported to Amphibia. Marcy is studying in a library where she discovers a book that has a reference to some dumb show that no one's ever heard of, and which is something called a calamity box, which looks awfully similar to the music box that Anne's been carrying around. We then cut to Marcy at home where she's having an argument with her parents about something before she runs off, and discovers an antique shop that just so happens to have a calamity box. Following that, we join back up with the Planters, presenting the fully charged music box to Andrius, only for Sasha and Grime to enact their coup, which succeeds. During their celebration, however, they discover a mural that shows that Andrius might not be as benevolent as he makes himself seem. But when Grime and Sasha confront Anne to try and convince her to stop rescuing Andrius, you can't really blame Anne for not trusting Sasha anymore. The day is saved. Hooray! Now Andrius can power up the music box and return Anne and her friends back. Oh my god, he's evil! Andrius is a delightful villain because even though he does some pretty horrific things, he doesn't lose his jovial, goofy attitude. It's like Red Letter Media once said.
He's fucking evil and he loves it.
And what makes him all the more sinister is that he tries to turn the 3 girls against each other, revealing that Marcy knew all along that the calamity box could transport people to other worlds. She never planned on returning home, hoping that Anne and Sasha would join her and Andrius on an adventure to various worlds that would last forever. What's sad is that her justification for trapping him in Amphibia wasn't malicious. The reason why she fought with her parents on the day they got teleported to Amphibia was because her family was moving out of state, and she didn't want to be separated from her friends. But it doesn't stop the chills that I got when she told Anne to look at Sprig, I gave you that, I gave you everything. Even during my rewatch of the show for note-taking, that line brought me to tears at how desperate it was. What follows is an amazing fight scene, with Andrius drawing a flaming sword that looks an awful lot like the sword of the Emperor if you ask me, and sticking his robots on the Planter family and the traitors, only for former enemies to team up and take down the robots. They really pulled all the stops when it came to the fight animation for the finale. One thing that I thought was kind of funny on my first watch was how the finale had a warning about how some scenes could be intense for younger viewers, and I just kind of scoffed at it. I mean, Weirdmageddon had way worse and scarring imagery than almost any other kid show I've ever seen. What could this cutesy little kid show possibly do to warrant a warning? At first I thought it was going to be Polly being squished into a pancake by Andrius, but no, she was fine, she just grew her legs. Then I thought it was going to be Sprig plummeting to his death, which was actually kind of chilling because of the flashbacks that Anne has, and we even see the outro animation of Season 1 properly animated as a scene, but no, Marcy and Joe Sparrow saved him. This particular attempt at murder causes Anne to unlock the power of the crystal that she charged during her trial and go Super Saiyan. Once again, we see a super cool action sequence with Anne all powered up. She goes all beast mode and demolishes all of Andrius' robots, and even has him on the ropes before she passes out from the exertion. Sprig shows her that he's still alive, and Andrius is about to kill Anne when Marcy takes the calamity box and manages to open a portal. Sasha and Grime fend off Andrius for as long as they can. Anne and the Planters are in the portal waiting for Marcy to join them when...
I just need to...
Now look what you've made me do.
They weren't kidding when they said it would be intense. Never in a million years would I think that a Disney show would have the balls to literally show a child being stabbed, with a flaming sword no less. It's disturbing seeing the shock and realization on Marcy's face, and Anne's worried scream before the portal is closed and Anne and the Planters find themselves on Earth. Season 2 of Amphibia is incredible, which is especially surprising considering how underwhelming the first season was. We get more development for our main cast, plenty of adventures of them outside Wartwood, and character development for some of the new characters like Marcy and Andreas. Out of all the seasons, this one had the fewest skipped episodes during my rewatch, the only one being episode 12, The Shut-In. Every other episode having at least one segment in it that's worth watching. Obviously, the temple episodes and the finale are the definitive best episodes of the season. My personal favorite episode would have to be episode 19, The Dinner and Battle of the Bands, because we see Sasha and Grime interact with the main cast in a way that's more casual, like they're characters who have been around for a few episodes and weren't literally just planning a coup a few episodes prior. But my favorite scene of season 2 has to be in episode 9, Hopping Mall. The episode is about Anne and Sprig working together to win a shopping cart derby in order to win an antique teapot that Anne wants to give to her mom when she returns home. It's revealed that the antagonist of the episode is the daughter of the woman who made the teapot, and she and Anne bond over how much they miss their moms before Anne gives her the teapot anyway. The moment Priscilla mentioned how her mom would cut the crust off sandwiches, it was like a dam burst in my eyes. And that's not even the end of the tears. Before the end of the episode, Anne talks to Sprig about how much she misses her mom, how her mom would sing terribly but she would give anything in that moment to hear her singing. And then Sprig talks about how his mom died when he was young, that he barely even remembers what she looks like, and he begins to wonder if he can even miss someone you barely remember before Anne jumps forward and hugs him, and then he starts to cry. Parent-child stuff always makes me cry, man. I remember the first time I cried from a movie was the Barnyard movie when the cow dad died. I was crying so hard that my dad had to comfort me. Some of the characters introduced this season could have definitely used more screen time, but otherwise I don't have any major criticisms. I don't really have anything else to say. Watch every episode except for 12 and you'll be good to go. If you haven't figured it out, I think that season 2 is really good. I'd give it an 8 out of 10, bordering on a 9. So going into season 3, I had some high expectations. And boy, were they not met. Mostly. Season 3 starts out the way you'd expect it to, with the first 2 episodes being about the Planters having to adapt to living on Earth. There are a bunch of fun adventures during the first half, like the Planters going to the mall or going to watch a movie only be hunted by a government agent, but it doesn't feel like there's enough urgency for Anne and the Planters to get back to Amphibia. Technically, every episode after the third one has some sort of relevance to the plot, because we get introduced to at least one character in each episode that returns in order to help the Planters during the mid-season finale. But were some of these characters really necessary? I forgot what half these characters did during Escape to Amphibia until I rewatched it. Heck, some of them I forgot even existed, so it's not like they left much of an impact on me. Mr. and Mrs. Boonchoy are great to watch. Dr. Jan, Terry, and Humphrey are all entertaining in their own ways, but the robotics girls, Molly Jo, and the old Thai ladies didn't really stick with me personally, which is especially a shame for the Thai ladies since their episode where Anne and the Planters take part in the Thai Temple Festival is a personal favorite of mine for 3A, sitting right alongside Thai Feud and Adventures in Cat Sitting. For the first half of the 3A, the main antagonist is this Terminator Froba that Andrea sent to kill Anne so she can't tell anyone about the coming invasion, but he only shows up in 3 episodes, so that's kinda lame. After him, the main antagonist is Government Agent Mr. X and his partner/assistant Jenny. He's a fine character, but I got some personal beef with him. I'm not trying to be homophobic or anything, which would be ironic if I was considering I'm bisexual, but he's voiced by RuPaul using that stereotypical effeminate gay man voice that I just hate. Can you not talk like your bleach blonde Valley Girl stereotype? I guess I'll get to 3B now since I don't really feel like talking about 3A anymore. 3B isn't much better. In fact, I might be worse overall. There are certainly episodes that aren't bad per se. The Corn the King is good, but it should have been a full episode instead of just a segment. Commander Anne shows us just how far Sasha has gone and changing for the better. And I like Sasha's Angels because we get to see some of the townspeople show off their strengths when fighting. All the other episodes, up until the final few, feel the most like filler compared to all the other filler episodes in the series. Most of them can be summarized as, the Resistance meets a group of people that met in a previous episode, they fight with each other until the other group realizes that Andrea's taking over the world is a bad thing, and they agree to help the Resistance. And the Ohm episodes definitely didn't need to be split into 2. Just put all the important stuff from Mother of Ohms into Ohmtown Road, put the root of evil in its place, and boom. You have enough time to make the Corn the King double length so we can buy into Andreas, Beryl, and Leaf's friendship. Speaking of which, the Core is such an unsettling villain. It reminds me a lot of the Throne Mechanicums of Warhammer 40k. Darcy is just as energetic and enjoyable as Marcy, only now she's evil. And I just love the design of having a lot of glowing orange eyes. It makes Darcy seem inhuman despite inhabiting a human body. I only just now realized that while writing this that I haven't exactly talked about the comedy of their series, so let me just real quick talk about this show's humor. It's pretty funny. I wouldn't say it's as funny as Gravity Falls or Owl House, but there are definitely parts where I laughed out loud. Hop Pop got the most laughs out of me compared to the other characters, Anne and Sprig got into plenty of hilarious hijinks, and Polly, I think, had a few jokes that I chuckled at. The final 2 episodes are what saved Season 3 from being the worst season of the show. All In is a fantastic penultimate episode. We see the Planters get over the trauma caused by the Herons, the Boonchoys get to use government technology to fight robots, Marcy realizes that while it was wrong of Anne and Sasha to ignore her once, she shouldn't have tried to force them into doing what she wants, and Andreas finally gets closure on his friendship with Leaf that he thought had been ruined beyond repair. And at this point you should realize that I absolutely love the fight scenes. I'm not particularly fond of the heroes down but gets a second win when they realize their friends and family are supporting them trope, but it doesn't really ruin the fight for me, and I did get some amusement from the fact that Mr. X used K-pop to motivate Anne, even though I'm not a big K-pop person. Although I do listen to a lot of Japanese music, so there's probably a little bit of overlap between the two. I also really like Darcy's fight with Sasha and Grime. I personally would have liked it if Darcy started to break Marcy's bones in order to attack from unexpected angles, really showing how little it cares for this vessel's inhabiting, but that would probably be pushing things too far for this kid's show. Plus, we already see Grime losing her arm and Sasha get slashed in the back, so I can't complain too much about how brutal the show gets. By the end of the episode, Marcy gets disconnected from the core, the invasion is defeated, and everyone goes back to Amphibia in order to get the Amphibilanders back home. All is well, until Sprig looks up and notices that the moon is falling from the sky. The series finale, The Hardest Thing, is probably the most satisfying conclusion that I've seen in a show for a very long time. Anne, Sasha, and Marcy unlock the full power of the crystals in order to stop the moon from destroying all of Amphibia, each of them using the powers in their own unique ways. Anne creates a giant tennis ball and racket, Sasha creates some flaming pom-poms, and Marcy throws around a D20, all while a big band remix of No Big Deal plays in the background. It's so good. We even get to see Andreas attempt to redeem himself by sending the remaining Frobos to help the girls push back the moon. There's something satisfying about the way Andreas says, "Standing up to you," and "full throttle engaged." It's probably because he's voiced by Keith David. I can't say that I was all that moved when Anne sacrificed herself because I knew that she was going to come back to life somehow. But that scene where the girls say goodbye to their friends had me crying so hard. The ending scene is just so gosh darn satisfying. Hearing about how Anne and Sasha grew apart in high school, and seeing that final shot of Sprig the frog with the "Get Lost in Amphibia" sign in the background, it gets me misty-eyed just thinking about it. Deep down, I wish that Anne and Sprig had a way to meet each other again and stay close to one another, just like they wanted. But just like them, I realize that things always change, and instead of resisting, it's better to embrace the change. Season 3 was a rough spot for the show. It certainly had its moments, and it wasn't as bad as Season 1, but it feels like it went on just a bit too long. There wasn't enough urgency to get back to Amphibia when the Planters were on Earth, and there wasn't enough urgency to defeat Andreas when they got back home. My personal recommended episodes will be the first 4 episodes, then Anne's Terminator, Episode 7, 10, Sasha's Angels, The Corn the King, and then the final 2 episodes, which are obviously the best of the season. And my favorite scene of the season would have to be towards the end of Adventures in Cat Sitting. To summarize, the Planters feel like they're taking advantage of the Boonchoy's kindness by staying so long, so they volunteer to take Anne's cat Domino to the vet. Hijinks ensue, and in the end they get bailed out by Mr. Boonchoy. Hot Pop laments about how he feels bad for taking advantage of the Boonchoys, to which Mr. Boonchoy basically says, "Listen here, you froggy fucks. You literally took care of my daughter for 5 months for no reason other than the fact that you're so goddamn nice. As far as my family and I are concerned, you slimy bastards don't owe us anything." Or he said something like that, I don't quite remember. I just like how this little scene shows 2 parental figures coming to an understanding, how they're grateful to each other for taking care of their respective families when they were lost in an unfamiliar world. In the end, I feel conflicted. My mind is telling me that the show should get a 7 out of 10, which makes sense. My scoring for each of the seasons would go 6, 8, and 7, which averages out to a 7 out of 10. But my heart is telling me that, even though it had its fair share of low points, that a 7 is just too low. With an ending as satisfying, emotional, and, for lack of a better word, amazing as what this show had, it deserves an 8 out of 10. Is it the best Disney Channel show? No, the other 2 shows that I watched I would consider to be overall better. But that shouldn't downplay how amazing the show is at its best. I watched every single episode, and while I obviously wouldn't recommend doing that, it doesn't diminish any of the good episodes. So my final score for Amphibia is an 8 out of 10. Definitely worth watching. And that concludes my review of Amphibia. I wonder how long I've been talking. Oh. Holy crap, I still have 2 more shows to talk about. Yeah, I like watching longer videos anyway, so I don't really mind. Next up, it's... Owl House follows the journey of Luz Noceda, human girl who gets transported to another world inhabited by witches, demons, and magic known as the Boiling Isles. She becomes the apprentice to Ida the Owl Lady, a wild witch on the run from the authorities. She also befriends Ida's roommate slash pet slash adopted son King, self-proclaimed King of Demons. The show is all about Luz's journey to become a witch, which becomes a struggle when she finds out that she can't use magic the same way the residents of the Boiling Isles do. She also has to contend with Ida's ever-worsening curse, which inhibits her magical abilities and turns her into a ferocious owl beast if she doesn't drink enough of a potion. She makes friends with other residents of the Boiling Isles, eventually becoming a student at Hexside Academy, and discovering a dangerous conspiracy by Emperor Belos, the de facto ruler of the Boiling Isles who wants to rule over all magic users. Same with Amphibia, I'll go season by season with my thoughts. Season 1 is pretty strong. Comparing it to Amphibia's first season, Owl House does a lot more to get me invested in the world. In Amphibia, we're explicitly told that there's a much larger world outside of what we see, but they give an excuse to not let us see the rest of the world. Owl House, on the other hand, doesn't tease us with some mystery land that we can't see. Whenever we see a wide shot of the island, like when Ida and Luz go to the Titan's Knee, as far as we know, that's it. That's all the land that the Boiling Isles have to offer, and because of that, the world feels more full, despite probably taking up the same amount of landmass as Frog Valley. For the most part, the characters vary in quality, but at their worst, they're still okay. I find myself relating to Luz a lot. As a kid, I struggled to make friends because of how weird and asocial I was. Ida is entertaining, even if she is just a sassy, female version of Grunkle Stan. King is so adorable. Every time Luz points out something adorable about King, and then King does that thing, I react the exact same way as Luz. Though he does lose a few points for being voiced by Alex Hirsch using the exact same voice as Bill in Gravity Falls. I know he's supposed to be cute, and the voice works surprisingly well for that, but I just can't get the image of Bill out of my head whenever I hear his voice.
This is ludicrous. I once led armies. I can lead a dang boot camp. Remember, reality is an illusion, the universe is a hologram. Buy gold, buy!
And then there's Hootie, who...
Hoot hoot! Password, please! Ah!
I fucking love Hootie. Every single line he has gets me to at least chuckle, if not full bust-out laughing. His shrill, maniacal, ever-shouting voice, the fact that he ends his sentences with either hoot or hoot hoot kills me. He's easily my favorite character of the show. And I swear to God, if I see any anti-Hootieism in the comments, I'm gonna... The side characters are where we start to see a dip in quality. Gus and Willow have the exact opposite problems as to why I don't really care for either of them. Gus only gets one episode in Season 1 that at first seems like it's meant to develop him as a character. The episode tries to make Gus sympathetic because he's younger than most of the other students at Hexside and he feels insecure about it. But that piece of characterization gets overshadowed when Principal Bump allows Luz to enroll in Hexside. Willow, on the other hand, gets 2 episodes, and while those episodes are good, I don't know, there's something that I can't quite put my finger on that makes me not care for her. I like the episode where Luz and Amity go into Willow's mind to repair her memories, and we find out that Amity and Willow used to be childhood friends until Amity's parents forced her to distance herself from Willow. The fact that Willow is willing to repair her friendship with Amity eventually, even if it isn't right now, makes me want to like her, but she just doesn't vibe with me, and I can't give any proper reason as to why. Speaking of Amity, I really like her. I initially thought that she was going to be the recurring bully/villain of the series, but she's actually a well-written character who goes from gleefully watching Luz almost get dissected, to developing a friendship with Luz, to developing a crush on her. I'll talk more about the relationship when we get to Season 2, because I think that would be more fitting, but consider my expectations positively subverted. Lilith is... serviceable. She serves as a recurring threat to Ida throughout the season, wanting to be the one who brings Ida into custody, but there are so many times where she could just bring Ida in if she took her job seriously. But instead she hinges her success on a witch sport, or lets her go because she wants Ida to join of her own free will, which is disappointing considering how cool her initial fight with Ida was. The action animation for this show is top-notch. Both of the fights between Ida and Lilith are visual spectacles. I love how Ida's attacks usually incorporate some sort of owl visual, and I love how Ida made giant stone hooties to eat Lilith. Like, even when Hootie isn't on screen, he's making me laugh. And the Grom fight is probably my favorite scene of the season, where we see Luz and Amity dance like they're at prom, but they're also using their magic to fight a demon that can use your greatest fears against you. So I've talked about the characters, and I've talked about the animation, but how's the story? Story is good, I guess. It takes its time building up the world and lore of the Boiling Isles. There are episodes that are dedicated to teaching Luz/the audience a crucial piece of lore about the world, like the fact that there's a magical school or what covens and paladins are. But then we get episodes that develop the characters, like when Luz learns of her spells and when we learn about Ida's curse. In between those episodes, we get some more generic kid show plots, and those are probably my least favorite of the season. We get episodes about body swapping and shrinking, both of which were done previously in Gravity Falls, and which I personally think were done better in Gravity Falls anyways. But we also get an episode where Luz and King are forced to write a best-selling novel or will be crushed into cubes, so the filler isn't all bad, just stuff that, for the most part, I don't really care about. Overall, the plot for Season 1 isn't what I would call strong, but in this instance it doesn't have to be strong because we're taught about the rules and lore for the world in which the show takes place. One last thing I want to mention before I get to the final 2 episodes is that Warden Wrath is literally half of my old My Hero OC that I had in high school. I consider not even bringing this up because it doesn't have anything to do with the review, but his stretchy arms are literally half of my old OC, and I haven't been able to get that thought out of my head since I saw the first episode. On that completely unrelated note, let's get into the last 2 episodes. These episodes are where we get introduced to Emperor Belus, the main antagonist for the majority of the show. His first appearance is honestly a little underwhelming considering how much he's been built up. I know I'm jumping to Season 2 here a little bit, but I kinda wish they made Belus a hardcore Christian. I know, I too am sick and tired of Christians being portrayed by Hollywood as being evil, but Belus is a witch hunter from the 1600s. If there was ever a villain where being a Christian would make sense, it's him. Also, the whole thing about lying about curing Ida isn't very good. I kinda would have liked it if, instead of outright lying, Belus rationalized killing Ida as saving her, like, "Look at her. As a result of her wild magic, she has become a suffering beast. The best way for us to save her is to put her down," kind of logic. Plus, that could further play into him being a crazy Christian. The other major plot twist in these episodes is the reveal that Lilith is the one who put the curse on Ida, which I don't know how I didn't see that coming. I must not have been paying much attention. On paper, this reveal is devastating and emotional, but Lilith isn't that great of a character anyway, and at this point I haven't really bought into the idea that Ida and Lilith care for each other. So far, there's only been one time where Lilith let Ida go without a fight. Every other time Ida escaped due to Lilith's incompetence. The final episode has plenty of sweet moments, most notably between Luz and Ida, and I thought the ending where Lilith and Ida lost their magical abilities, requiring them to learn from Luz, was oddly satisfying. I like how the student has to teach her teachers. Ida and Lilith sharing the curse is good because it means Season 2 will have less filler plots about Luz and King dealing with Owl Beast Ida. One last thing I want to mention before I wrap up Season 1 is that the end credit sequence is so satisfying. I'm sure there's a proper word for it, but it's like a visual ASMR, the way Luz's steps match with the beat and how the scenery and Luz's posture changes. And that was Season 1 of Owl House. I can't help but feel like a little bit of a hypocrite, because on paper my complaints for Owl House and Amphibia are so similar. But I think I like Owl House more because it isn't 80% filler like Amphibia is. While the side characters are mostly okay, the main cast are superb, and carry the show alongside the lore and the plot. Overall, I'd have to give Season 1 a 7 out of 10. Worth watching. Is it just me or is it weird how similar Amphibia and Owl House are? I know they're made at more or less the exact same time, but they're both shows about teenage girls who get transported to another world full of dangers and get taken in by a family they learn to bond with while they learn about the world they now live in. They're both basically Western isekai, which in turn means they're the third and second best isekai shows ever. But also they're similar because Season 2 of both shows are the best seasons. First of all, Hootie. Did I mention how much I love Hootie? For the first few episodes, Lilith stays in the Owl House while she learns to cope with the curse, during which she bonds with Hootie. And I just love how Hootie's manic voice is offset by Lilith's more controlled tone. And when Lilith eventually left, I cried right alongside Hootie. Lilith wasn't exactly improved as a character because we only saw her for a few episodes, but I enjoyed her relationship with Hootie, how she seemed to be the only person who genuinely enjoyed Hootie's company. I realized that I forgot to mention Amity's twin siblings Ed and M. They're fun, they actually remind me of some twins that went to my high school, only much less obnoxious. We also meet Amity's parents, who are just magic versions of Pacifica's parents, except Dad is actually kinda cool. I like him. Another new character is Rain, who is non-binary.
Okay.
It's whatever, I guess. I don't really have a strong opinion about their gender one way or the other. I'm actually more critical of the way Bards is done in this show. Don't get me wrong, I love Bards. My first D&D character I played was a Bard, but kinda seems like Bards are just generic magic users but with music. Wouldn't it be cool if Bard was just a catch-all term for artists in the Boiling Isles? Like there could be a painter Bard that used magic to change an object's colors, or a sculptor Bard who could manipulate rock and stone. And then there's Hunter, the Golden Guard, the Emperor's most trusted soldier. He's the new recurring antagonist of the series, at least for a little while. While he's initially blindly loyal to Belos, he eventually connects to a Pausman, something forbidden by Belos, and begins to doubt his teachings before running away, eventually joining the main cast in the fight against Belos. See what I said earlier about manipulated people standing up to their manipulators. One new character that I am critical of is V. For multiple episodes, we get teases that something isn't right in the human world. Luz's mother being in contact with someone pretending to be Luz, but most definitely not Luz. I was expecting it to be some shocking twist, like Belos secretly had some portal into the human world and was in contact with Luz's mom in order to try and blackmail Luz in order to get something he would want. But no, it turns out the fake Luz was a demon from the Boiling Isles who ran away into the human world at the start of the show, and who just so happened to have shape-shifting powers so she could take Luz's place. I guess that it does fill a plot hole of Camila wondering where Luz is once camp is over, and the scene in the end where Luz and her mom have to separate is really sad, but I feel a little misled at how ominous they were building up this reveal only for it to not be something dark and sinister. I guess I can't blame V for that though. She's a fine enough character, even if she doesn't get much more screen time after her introductory episode. I can't hold back anymore. I know I talk about favorite episodes towards the end of the season, but I have to talk about Knock Knock Knockin' on Hootie's Door. Easily one of, if not the best episode of Owl House. It's a Hootie-centric episode, which that alone will put it in the top 5 greatest episodes, but we also get a lot of development for the other main characters. Hootie spends the episode trying to help the residents of the Owl House with their problems. King wants to know what kind of demon he is, and Hootie tries to teach him Demons 101, but the conclusion they come to is that King is a demon that's never been seen before, which at first makes him upset until he learns that he has voice superpowers. Ida is trying to learn how to better control her curse, so Hootie puts her to sleep in order to help her gain strength. In her dreams, she confronts the trauma of attacking her dad and how the Owl Beast ruined her romantic relationship before confronting the Owl Beast directly. The two of them come to a truce, which allows Ida to turn into Harpy Ida. Looking like Harpy Lady MILF if you ask me. Put her on a Yu-Gi-Oh card just to be censored by the TCG. These two plotlines are amazing. They honestly could have written Luz out of the episode by making her go on some magic field trip and it would still be one of the best episodes. But no, they just had to go and make Lumity a real thing in the most Owl House way possible. Luz is coming to terms with the fact that she has a crush on Amity, so Hootie kidnaps Amity and forces the two of them to go through a tunnel of love in order to jumpstart their relationship. Amity thinks the gesture is sweet, but Luz is so embarrassed she starts to destroy the ride, causing a misunderstanding between the two until Luz finally asks Amity out. Alright, this next bit is going to be a bit controversial, so just bear with me. As I mentioned before, I am bisexual, but I'm not particularly fond of the LGBT community. I won't go into too much detail about the politics of it all. Let's just say that there are ideas popular within the community that I disagree with. One thing that I can confidently say that I don't like about the LGBT community is their obsession with representation in media. Personally, I think representation for the sake of representation is fucking stupid. Look at this person. Look at them and boo. The Lord of the Rings movies are basically a trilogy about a group of straight white guys who go on a road trip to save the world. There's hardly any women, there's no colored people, and most relevantly, no gay people, even if Legolas looks like a twink. They also just so happen to be some of the greatest movies ever made, so they've got that going for them. So now that you know my personal stakes in the matter, I have to say that I absolutely love Luz and Amity's relationship. You want to know why I like it? Because it doesn't feel forced and it was built up over a season and a half. In too many TV shows, they make characters gay in order to promote inclusion, but it hardly ever fits. I know I didn't have a lot to compliment about them to begin with, but I only ever saw Yunan and Olivia's relationship as platonic, like they were really good friends, close as sisters even, but not lovers. Not once during any of their interactions did I think, I ship them. Another example is Adora and Catra. For the entire series, the closest I thought their relationship went was that of sisters. But nope. In the very last episode, they ignore the fact that they've been mortal enemies for months and confess their love for each other, and Adora technically commits bestiality. Or at the very least reveal she's a closet furry. Lumity has been one of very few gay relationships that I've seen done well, alongside Captain Holt and his husband. It didn't come from nowhere like so many other LGBT relationships, and there's actual conflicts, like when Luz signs her and Amity up for a witch wrestling entertainment match against Amity's dad's wishes. I don't know what else I can say to express how great the relationship is. Even the iFunny hive mind is split on whether or not to like this relationship, and if that isn't a ringing endorsement, I don't know what is. That leads into another one of my compliments towards the season. Every single episode is in service to either the characters or the plot. There are a few episodes that maybe aren't the best and are a little awkward, like Through the Looking Glass Ruins, Follies Up the Coven Day Parade, and Any Sport in a Storm, but the first two still have great stuff involving Lumity and Drain, respectively. We also have Elsewhere and Elsewhen, Hollow Mind, and Edge of the World, which I would put as my 3 favorite episodes if I remove my Hootie bias. The reveal that Philip is actually Bellows doesn't come as too much of a shock to the audience. I was somehow more suspicious of that than Lilith causing Edith's curse. But the reveal to the characters is what's more important, including when we discover that Hunter isn't actually all that important to Bellows. He's an easily replaceable clone of Bellows' brother. So let's get to the finale. I wouldn't call it a bad season finale, but I think I have to hand the dub to Amphibia in this category. The fight between the kids and Bellows is cool, especially when Bellows gets all goopy, but my main issue with the finale is the Collector. The concept of a godlike child is terrifying for sure, and it's not like he comes from out of nowhere. We see him teased a few times and even see him talk with Bellows. But we don't actually know what he is until the finale, where he one-shots Bellows and stops the draining spell with one finger, like moving a magnet across a fridge. Let's compare it to True Colors. Andreas reveals his true intentions about halfway through the episode, and only after the coup to take over the kingdom fails. Andreas then demonstrates how far he's willing to go to get what he wants, up to and including child murder. And his main goal is to conquer every single world in the multiverse. Conversely, the Collector only becomes a threat towards the end of the episode, and the only thing it seems like he wants is to play the Owl House game. But we never see what that entails. For all we know, it could be everything is normal, but with the Collector taking the place of Luz. We don't even see how he's playing the game or what danger he's putting everyone in, so I don't know whether or not I need to be worried. I don't know, man. The rest of Season 2 is really great, better than the previous season and arguably better than Season 2 of Amphibia, but the finale definitely felt a little rushed, which I partially blame on what ended up happening in Season 3, which I'm sure the creative team knew about beforehand and tried to work around, which is why it is the way it is. Thankfully, I can still say that Season 2 is definitely worth watching, if only for the Hootie episode. And I guess while you're at it, you could watch the rest of the season or whatever. Season 2 gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Now before I dive into what Season 3 has, I want to talk about what happened to Season 3. For some reason, Disney shortened Season 3 down to 3 double-length episodes. There's a lot of people who seem to think that Disney did this out of homophobia, which I don't personally believe. Or at the very least, it wasn't malicious homophobia, which I know sounds contradictory, but let me explain. While I'm not an expert in broadcast law, I am a major in broadcast communications, so I do have at least some surface-level knowledge. What I propose is that if homophobia did have some part to play in Season 3's shortened length, then it is due more to a legal issue rather than a moral or opinion-oriented decision. Considering that Owl House is a cartoon made for children that prominently displays a gay relationship, and how much of a hotbed issue LGBT and children are nowadays, there could be some argument about how having a prominent gay couple in a children's cartoon could be considered indecent or offensive. Now, is that what I actually believe? No. I think the real reason is that Disney is fucking stupid. This is the same Disney that puts out shitty live-action remakes every year, and the same Disney that saw The Last Jedi and went, people didn't seem to like this experimental yet effort-filled movie that has plenty of valid criticism. Let's make the next movie a boring, unoriginal, lifeless shell of a Star Wars movie, bring back old characters for no reason other than fan service, put in fake deaths in order to create fake tension, and add in cringy dialogue on the same level as the prequels.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
I don't understand how people can call The Last Jedi the worst Star Wars movie ever when both the prequels and Rise of Skywalker exist, but at least the prequels have nostalgia going for them, which is more than what I can say for piece of shit Walker. Now that I've gotten that out of my system, let's get on to Season 3. Pros of having a shortened season, there's no room for filler. Cons of having a shortened season, there's no room for filler. I'm grateful that we don't get a repeat of Amphibia, where half the season was just misadventures in the human world, but at the same time, I can't exactly say that's a fair comparison, considering the planches are just frogs and the witches are, well, witches and can do magic. There are plenty of cool episode ideas, both in the montage they show and some that I thought of myself, like Luz taking the gang to see what human school is like, or maybe the Isle witches see some David Copperfield or Penn and Teller type magic show on TV thinking they have real magic, only to be captured and forced to try and make magic for their TV magician, and Luz needs to find a way to rescue them. It's just a thought. For what it is, episode 1 is pretty good. It's all about the witches trying to figure out a way to return to the Boiling Isles, while Luz and Hunter struggle with the secrets they're hiding from the others. The scene with Luz and Hunter when they search the shack for Bellows, and Hunter cries after Luz calls him family, is really touching. This episode does a good job building up the dread that Hunter is feeling about the idea that Bellows survived and is in the human world. That scene where the mother is talking to the police guy about the Bellows possessed deer, then we see a heavily rotted deer carcass, is disturbing. The only other thing of note is the ending fight scene. I swear it looks like they hired animators from like the Dragon Prince for this fight scene. It looks so smooth. I know I don't have much to say for this episode, but it's not because it's bad, I just don't have much to say. It's a good episode with good pacing, tension, and emotional beats. Episode 2 isn't that great. It's not terrible, but there are a lot of things that just don't work. For starters, Basha and Kikimura aren't that interesting of antagonists, especially when we're in the penultimate episode. I think that this second episode would have been better if it was just about what happened in the Boiling Isles while Luz and friends are in the human world. We could see how Ida and Lilith escaped nullification, or... Okay, there's not much else that episode could include that's not already done in this episode or the next, but that doesn't change how lame Basha and Kikimura are. I'm still not totally on board with some of the emotional moments this episode tries to pull. Willow feeling a bunch of pressure for being the reliable one is all well and good, but when she finally opens up, all she says is that she's worried about her dad's, which is expected, but I feel like there should be more that she should have opened up about, like being worried about what happens to her friends, or whether or not things will be the same even if they win. The stuff with Bellis is cool though. I especially like when all the ghosts of Caleb show up and Bellis just tells them to shut up. That was funny. Luz having a heart-to-heart with her mom is heartwarming, plus Luz's husband finally hatches, which is neat. The humor isn't that great. The only joke I think I laughed at was the Caleb ghost joke, and that was it. The rest of the jokes seem awkward, either with their timing or their delivery.
What just happened?
And at last we get to the final episode, Watching and Dreaming. This is a pretty good episode and a pretty good finale. Titan Bellows serves as an awesome final boss of the series, both from a visual and story perspective. Visually, he's horrifying. Spreading his Titan stuff throughout the island provides some pretty disturbing imagery. Story-wise, we've seen just how evil Bellows really is, so to see him go so far as to possess the Titan itself provides some pretty high stakes. I like how Luz takes the Collector to all the places that were important to her during her stay in the Boiling Isles, serving as a sort of victory lap for the series. I also like the scene where Luz dies, even though I knew she was going to come back to life. But seeing the Collector try to fix Luz by snapping his fingers, then wondering why she isn't returning, that's what sold me on the Collector, and made me see him as the child he was. And then Ida and King lose themselves and fight without restraint. It's pretty cool. When Luz comes back, she has the power of the Titan, who was voiced by Egoraptor, which I didn't notice the first time I watched, but it's pretty cool. Titan Luz has an awesome design, but she can't fight Titan Bellis on her own and needs the help of Ida and King, which I thought was nice. Rain gets some time to shine while they help Ida and King fight off Bellis while Luz tears Bellis from the Titan's heart. I gotta say that Luz pulling Bellis from the Titan looks awesome. It's almost like a scene from an anime. After Bellis is weakened, he tries to trick Luz one last time by taking the form of Philip before he starts getting melted by boiling rain, revealing his goopy form. Admittedly, it's kinda lame how they stomp him to death in order to finally defeat him, but hey, in the end he got what he deserved. The ending epilogue is probably my biggest complaint when it comes to the finale. It's mostly just showing us how things return to normal with a voiceover from Luz, without us being able to hear what the characters are saying to each other. I do like how Luz is still able to travel between worlds, like what I wanted for Anne and Amphibia, but at least that gave Amphibia a more emotional ending compared to Owl House. But I'll admit, I'm a sucker for final scenes that have a group photo of all the characters waving goodbye to the audience. Seeing the characters wave goodbye as if they're actually talking to me just tugs at my heart. And so we've reached the end of Owl House. This is an amazing show, overall better than Amphibia. Even the worst characters aren't hateable, there's plenty of emotional moments to keep you feeling for the characters, the animation is among the prettiest that I've seen in an animated show, the plot is full of mysteries with enough hints to make you want to figure it out for yourself. And while Season 3 didn't get enough time to tell the story that it deserved, I think that it got the best outcome it could given the circumstances. Owl House gets an 8 out of 10. Go watch it. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It's been about a week since I finished the Owl House review, and I'm on my third draft of the Gravity Falls review. Most of that is because of procrastination, but another part is intimidation. Gravity Falls is one of the most beloved TV shows of all time. What can I possibly say about the show to do it justice? Just don't be surprised if my Gravity Falls section is a little bit awkward. With that said, let's talk about... Gravity Falls stars Stripper and Mabel Pines, twins who are sent to Gravity Falls, Oregon to spend the summer with their great uncle Stan, who runs a tourist trap called the Mystery Shack. However, the two of them discover a journal that details the paranormal phenomenon inhabiting the small town. Together, they embark on a summer-long adventure to solve all the mysteries in the town before facing down a world-ending threat. Season 1 is pretty good. I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record at this point, but Season 1 doesn't really have much of a plot. Sure, there are a lot of mysteries set up, like Bill Cipher's whole deal, why Gideon wants control of the Mystery Shack, and who the author of the journal is, but those either get wrapped up in the season finale or don't get explored until the next season. Instead, most of the mysteries are contained within individual episodes, like The Legend of the Gobblewonker and Irrational Treasure. I greatly prefer shows that have an overarching plot of some kind, which is something that Season 1 doesn't really have, but the show manages to be so good that the lack of an overarching plot doesn't bother me. The only episode I'm not a big fan of in Season 1 is Bottomless Pit, because I don't like short story episodes, but other than that I enjoyed pretty much every other episode, even the less good ones like Dipper vs. Manliness and Land Before Swine. Every episode is so good, I can't pick my favorite episode from Season 1. The characters are fantastic. Dipper and Mabel bounce off each other really well, probably because of Alex Hirsch's own experience with his twin. Grunkle Stan is my favorite character. I'm a sucker for old, cranky characters. The other side characters like Seuss and Wendy are cool and entertaining to watch, and Gideon Gleeful is delightfully slimy. Most of the episodes that have him are good. That's all I have to say about Season 1. Look, I don't need to tell you that Gravity Falls is good. 9 out of 10, let's talk about Season 2. Season 2 is where Gravity Falls starts to pop off. All the seeds of mystery planted in Season 1 start to sprout, with a lot of episodes in the first half dedicated to Dipper trying to find the author of the journals, and we start to see more of what Grunkle Stan is building in the basement. Some of its episodes feel like Season 1 episodes, like The Gulf War and 5 Nights at Doki Doki Literature Club, but episodes like Sock Opera and Northwest Mansion Mystery give character arcs to people like Mabel and Pacifica. Then there are episodes like Into the Bunker and Society of the Blind Eye that further build on the mysteries, until we get to my 2 favorite episodes of the entire series. As a whole, Not What He Seems is an above-average good episode of Gravity Falls, with Grunkle Stan's doomsday machine finally coming online only for him to be taken in by the government, and it's up to Dipper and Mabel to uncover the truth and decide whether or not they should trust him. The final scene is what makes this episode among my favorites, especially when Seuss, the loyal man-child servant to Stan, disobeys him in order to protect the kids, holding Stan back with Dipper, and it's all up to Mabel to stop the machine. But before she does, Stan asks her to trust him, and perhaps for the first time in the entire show, we see Stan telling the truth, and Mabel lets the machine run, which brings back the author of the journals, Grunkle Stan's brother. A Tale of Two Stans takes the crown as my #1 favorite episode of television. The only other TV episode that comes close is Tales of Ba Sing Se, but that's mostly carried by the tale of Iroh. It's a tragic story about twin brothers who grew up close to each other, but over time they made mistakes that pushed each other apart emotionally, until they push each other apart physically, leading to one of them being lost in an alternate dimension for 30 years, while the other builds a machine he doesn't understand to bring him back. It does an amazing job of providing the backstory for Stan while giving us Ford's character, plus it still leaves some mysteries open. And then we get to the series finale, Weirdmageddon. Part 1 is fine, it more so serves to show off how screwed the world is if Bill manages to escape the town. I don't have much to say about it. Part 2 is about Dipper trying to get Mabel to leave her imaginary fantasy and go back to reality. The part where Dipper goes over all the times he and Mabel helped each other in the real world is sweet. Part 3 is awesome. The fight with the demons in the Shacktron while the guitar solo of the title theme plays was a high contender for my favorite scene. In Part 4, do I have to explain how good Part 4 is? My only complaint is how fast Grunkle Stan gets his memories back.
In retrospect, it seems a bit contrived.
Make him keep his memory loss for longer or something. Maybe he has to journey around the world with Ford in order to get his memory back. As is, it subdues what would otherwise be a really strong emotional moment. And that's it for Gravity Falls. I know that my review was short compared to the other shows, considering my script for the entirety of Gravity Falls is shorter than the script for individual seasons of the other shows. That's mostly because I don't know what to say about Gravity Falls that hasn't already been said. If you haven't watched Gravity Falls, go watch it, like, right now. And if you have watched it before, go watch it again. 9 out of 10. And that concludes my review for the big 3 of Disney animated TV shows. Keep in mind that this is merely my own opinion. I'm sure there are people who think that there are 1, 2, or maybe even 3 other Disney shows that deserve a spot in the big 3 more than any of these shows. But it has been a while since I watched a lot of Disney shows, so who knows. Maybe if this video gets a lot of attention, I might be convinced to look at some of those shows in consideration for a spot among the best. But until then, I'm Blake, and thanks for watching.